and welcome back to the NWA 1983 project. I'm your host, Juan Cena, and with me, as always, is Matt Riley. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm fantastic.
All right. I dig that. So this episode will be, once again, emanating from Tokyo, Japan. It's our New Japan Super Show Spectacular. Main event of this show will be Nature Boy Ric Flair taking on David Von Erich for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Should be a barn burner.
Yes.
This would be like a few months before David Von Erich's death, actually. So I kind of want to get that in there before history would strike.
Well, you can't alter history. You can't be like, hey.
I can't bring people back from the dead. That's for sure. So I got to deal with that. In addition, we're gonna talk a little bit about Wrestle Kingdom 12. I did actually both watch the show. We were supposed to have some guests, but they went all psycho sit on us. So that's that.
I'm wearing 3 yellow wigs just to fit in leather chaps and a vest.
What was the deal with wrestlers and leather chaps?
Things.
It's one of my goals in life to wear leather pants on a regular basis. I'm not there yet, obviously, but someday I'd like to be at that point. But when it comes to leather chaps, on the other hand, unless you're a legitimate cowboy or perhaps some sort of biker, you'll probably stay away from those. And I'm pretty sure Sid was neither. Avid softball player, though.
Yes.
Yeah. I also want to talk about today, while we're recording this, is the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, so Monday Night Raw first aired on January 11th, 1993 on the USA Network. It was the replacement for Primetime Wrestling, which was a fantastic show. Raw originated from the Grand Ballroom at the Manhattan Center, and someone who's often gone to Manhattan Center, Hammerstein Ballroom. There's actually 2 arenas sort of in the Hammerstein. There is the Hammerstein Ballroom, which is on the ground floor. You walk right in, and it's huge. It's the one with all the balconies and shit that you see. You see a lot of ECW shows. One Night Stand was there. The Grand Ballroom was like 6 flights up these stairs. They wouldn't let us use the elevators because I'm assuming they were broken at the time. So you have to go up, up in the building, and it's on the 6th floor. And it's actually very, very, very small. Smaller than it actually seems to be on TV. Actually, when the WWE shoots there, it looks much bigger than what it is. It's very, very small. But my first memories of Monday Night Raw, I had actually watched the premiere episode. I was an avid fan of Primetime Wrestling. I watched that every week. But when Raw appeared, that's something I definitely had to watch. I remember I used to watch The Fresh Prince, then Blossom, because it was the only thing that was on. And then I would watch Monday Night Raw. Well, you either watch Blossom or Murder, She Wrote, which was the lead-in for Raw back then, was Murder, She Wrote. So I wasn't going to watch Murder, She Wrote at all. So Blossom it was. Not a bad show. Not a bad show.
Another anniversary today is the passing of Large Marge.
Ah, yes.
January 11th, just saying.
I'll tell you what. That was the most scared I've ever was as a child, was the Large Marge sequence and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Oh my God. I started to cry. I literally started bawling because I was so scared. And anytime that movie comes on or I skip that part, I'll fast forward it because it's fucking scary as fuck. But a lot of people think that Raw was, at the Hammerstein or at the Manhattan Center for an extended period of time. It was only there for a year. They moved away. They took basically Raw on the road. Actually, it was the fall of '93. So basically by the end of 1993, Raw was taken out of the Manhattan Center permanently, and they started shooting that on the road. They usually use smaller venues and what have you. They wouldn't go to the big arenas, but eventually they would. But yeah, Raw, 25 years old. Just feels like yesterday to me. First match of the first Raw was Yokozuna taking on Koko Beware. It was ridiculous.
Is that when he splashed Frankie?
I wish he splashed Frankie. That'd been awesome. It used to be an hour back then, by the way. I wish it still was an hour. I think Raw is too long now. Well, Primetime was 2 hours, and they cut the hour out. For a while, when you watch Raw clearly wasn't the A show. It was clearly the B show. Nothing would really happen on Raw. It was kind of in its own universe, kind of away from like Superstars Challenge All American, which was the Superstars being your A show, Challenge and All American being your B shows. In New York, Wrestling Challenge and All American were on at the same time. Wrestling Challenge was on Fox 5, and obviously All American was on USA. But those early Raw episodes are not good. I mean, it's obviously to me it's an experiment. They're trying to do some funny stuff or whatever. Having Rob Bartlett as the color guy obviously wasn't any good. Like, he's not funny. He was like a D-class radio personality here in New York.
Yeah.
In New York, there's like, on the radio, when radio was big, it was like Howard Stern, Imus, Opie and Anthony. But yeah, Rob Bartlett, like Todd Pettengill was a bigger star in New York than Rob Bartlett. So, because most of us knew who Todd Pettengill was if you listen to radio here in New York. Man, it's fucking weird. I did find it amusing that Bobby Heenan kept on trying to break into Raw because I guess he wasn't booked or he wasn't allowed in, and he would come in dressed in drag, and he came in dressed as a Hasidic Jew. Which is hilarious to me. You had Sean Mooney as your man on the street. Sean Mooney, very underrated wrestling commentator, wrestling announcer. Went on to be the anchor of WOR here. It's in New York, but it's a New Jersey station, Channel 9. It would become My 9, and then would be the future home of SmackDown here in New York. So that's that. So Raw, 25 years old today. God bless. So Wrestle Kingdom 12, Matt. So overall, when you look at Wrestle Kingdom 12, what are your overall thoughts on this show?
It delivered.
Okay.
That's the first one. Everyone I've talked to about it feels, pretty much the same way, that as a whole, it was a really good show. Even if you weren't as familiar like I am with all the storylines. I watched the English presentation, so the announcers did a good job. I liked the way they announced, actually. It was pretty well done.
Kevin Kelly and Cyrus do I think, a really great job, real admirable job there.
Yeah. There were matches, of course, I look forward to, like the Jericho match, the Cody match, the Young Bucks. I will say this about the Young Bucks. As someone who, I've always kind of liked them as a team, but I've never really seen them work a full start-to-finish match. And you hear all the critiques. The vets get angry. Oh, they're flippy and blah, blah, blah. And they're undermining the integrity. Bullshit. They gave a good performance. The match was solid. Psychology was tight. The spots were great. It did a good job of traditional tag team split ring match wrestling. It was really well done. I really was impressed by the Young Bucks. I dare say they're my favorite tag team.
I think people who criticize the Young Bucks only watch them in 10-second clips,
right?
And they do goofy stuff like on the indies and stuff, but when they're in a big match situation or in a big card situation, whether it be Ring of Honor or a PWG when they were there, or a New Japan Pro Wrestling, they use more traditional wrestling than people would expect.
Right.
I think if you watch a full match against another quality opponent, I think a lot of people would change their minds on them.
I really feel that they've gotten the raw deal because of those Twitter guys who come out and talk smack, or the podcast where they super kicked a child. Yeah, it was funny. It was hysterical, or they whatever the match was. So for starters, that match to me was really well done. They won the tag titles. That was great. But it really was phenomenally done. And I will say too this, if you watch Being the Elite, it really supplements their promotability very well. It's a good selling point, but it's well done. They did a behind-the-scenes one on Wrestle Kingdom that was excellent because it kind of showed before, during, and after. It's a great window into it. You don't see a lot of times, like without being a part of the network on WWE, and you don't get the same. And I know it's a scripted, if you will, process, but you don't get that same staticky, awkward feel. Like it's stilted. It feels way more natural. Like I said, the match was fantastic. So that was a stand-up for me as far as that goes, opening.
Yeah, totally agree there. I think the opening match delivered. I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into the New Japan Rumble because historically those have been not the best matches on the card. Nice to see Liger there, of course. Nice to see Kojima there. Nice to see Kikuhara with the win there. I know your favorite wrestler, Cheeseburger, was there.
Cheeseburger was. Well, here's the thing. I watched the Rumble. I actually took a nap and got up to watch it. And I watched it live, and I'm watching the Rumble, and there are some guys I recognized, but it's really like the elimination process is kind of weird. Like some guys that like wow, it was Chad something wanting to tear, and was like, okay, he's putting out these other guys, and there's other guys that get in there and like you figure, oh, this guy's gonna have a good shot, and of course it comes down to Cheeseburger and the guy that won. But it was overall well done. It was a well done event, so I thought that was better than last year by a mile.
No Scott Norton in this one, huh?
No, and that's we've talked about this before about how I really hate the whole like tribute recycle of like this is a show with a huge prize. Give it to somebody that deserves it. A Rumble that is. This is a little less so, but still.
You saw a nice Taka Michinoku tiger mask.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. And the whole thing with the mask getting torn off, I was kind of like, what are they doing?
It seemed like a botch, though, right?
Yeah, I think they messed up. I think what they were trying to do was swap masks at one point, but I don't think they did it right.
No, something happened there. Next up, you had the Gauntlet match for the Never Open Weight 6-Man Tag Team Championship. You had Chaos, who defeated Bullet Club, Michael Elgin and War Machine, Suzuki Gun, and Taiyuchi Japan. I'm not a big fan of these multi-man gauntlet matches personally. The match was okay. Loved Tom Matanga, though. He is the good version of Roman Reigns. Like, he's what Roman Reigns should be, and he's not, and it makes me angry.
Yeah. Well, you're part Samoan, right?
I get confused for Samoan sometimes.
Honorary Samoan.
Me and Samoa Joe look like brothers, so that's true. I'm also a big fan of Bad Luck Fale. He just looks like a badass. Like, if you saw him in the fucking alley, I'd be scared shitless. But yeah, Never Open Weight 6-Man Championship. I think that's the one criticism I think it's fair for this show is that a lot of championships on the line on this show. I think too many. Next up, we had Kota Ibushi, who defeated Cody Rhodes with Randy Rhodes. And this was a single match. It went 15 minutes, 8 seconds. And I thought this was match of the night, to be honest. This was my favorite match.
Yeah, it was. I think it was up there for me, too. I really enjoyed it. I think it hit the spot of the night for me, which was the crossroads off the apron.
Yeah.
That was, because it's funny, we were talking about it work the other day, and I was saying, when it comes to big spots, it's like the first time somebody does something that's, just significant, it really stands out. Kenny hit the Terminator fly off the top, over the ropes to Jericho later.
Yeah.
But I've seen him do that before, but seeing Cody hit the crossroads, just amazing, and it looked brutal. I thought the match was fantastically, performed. They did a great job. I like the way his wife interacts at ringside. That was awful. She pretended to be hurt, and then she was like, "Hey."
She's a terrible worker. She
she?
wrestles sometimes. She's terrible, but she's trying and she's putting in work. So maybe she'll be like the next version of Trish Stratus. I don't know if anyone remembers how bad Trish Stratus was when she started. She was probably like one of the most awful, like Kelly level, Stacy Keibler level of work, and she ended up being one of the best ever. So I'm kind of hoping that for Brandy as well. Next up, we have LIJ, Evil and Sonata, who defeated the Killer Elite Squad of Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer to win the IWGP Tag Team Championship. This match was okay.
Well, it was funny because I'm watching, again, as an outsider, not a frequent watcher, although that's going to change soon. I'm going to get a subscription. It was like Davey Boy, it looked like they were killing them.
Yeah. And
I was like, okay, are they just like squashing these guys? Is this supposed to put them over? And then they go over. So I really thought this was going to go a different direction. But it was like, it showed how brutal they were as a team. Like, it was, if you want to call it the keeping them looking good in the loss, like they look strong.
Yeah, I think the story was the story of this match was the big comeback, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of squeaked over to get the win here. So overall, I think pretty good. I mean, again, not being able to watch, New Japan not having like the American TV on a regular basis, it still makes it difficult for American fans to keep up with it. Although, it's becoming easier and easier as the days go on at this point. So we don't get a live American commentary show. We have to wait months for it, it seems like. Or if you have access here in the States, Access, which is the name of the channel they're on here in the States, those shows are usually like 4 to 5 months old. So it can be a challenge for American fans, but again, if you're willing to put in the work, it's definitely worth the reward here. Next up, we had Haruki Goto defeated Missouri Suzuki. And this was the hair versus hair match for the Never Openweight Championship. I really like this match. Again, I don't know if they do hair versus hair in Japan very often. It doesn't seem like something that's very common for them.
No, and that's good, actually. That's a good thing not to do.
Yeah.
Keeps it as a fresh, important match. I mean, what if some guy like the high and tight? He's just like, hell with it. I'll lose it every time.
Yeah, every single time. Again, another championship match here. Yeah, they just kind of packed these in, huh?
They did. It was a long show.
By the way, for those of you who don't know what never means, it means new blood, evolution, valiantly, eternal, radical. And these are for new and upcoming wrestlers.
Super good Go-Go Pro.
Japan.
Yeah, right.
Next up, we had Will Ospreay, who defeated Marty Scurll, Tanahashi, and Kushida. This is a four-way match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. It went 21 minutes, 18 seconds.
And can I ask about a spot in that match?
Yeah, go for it.
The whole Marty Scurll breaking fingers spot.
Yeah.
What is that about? Like, because that just looks nasty. And I don't get why, like, as a fan, it's like, why would you let a guy do that? Like, just, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird spot. I've seen a handful of his Ring of Honor matches. Again, I haven't watched Ring of Honor regularly in a while.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like something he does over there very often, although I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
It does seem like a strange spot.
It'd be one thing if it was some kind of like super grudge match where you wanted to really sell.
Yeah.
Because then, again, and they do a job selling post-match as well. Like, if they don't show up with their hands in stints, you're like, oh, what?
It seems like something that Bad Luck Fale should be doing, not Marty Scurll.
Right.
Because he has that whole kind of gangster Yakuza kind of feel, you know what I mean? And Marty Scurll walks around with an umbrella, so there you go. Will Ospreay, he is a divisive young man.
Yeah.
Do you think he overdoes it with the flips? I don't think he overdid it in this particular match.
No.
But I think in some of his other matches, he may have, overdone it a little bit. Again, don't forget that the Ricochet Ospreay match that got so much buzz on the internet last year. I don't know. I gotta see more of his stuff, and I gotta see where I want to see him in a big match and see how he responds. Because, in a mid card match, okay, you can see it, but I want to see a big time main event match from him. That puts some time in 30 minutes plus 1-on-1 and see what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so. That's what I'm looking forward to. Maybe we'll see it in a Ring of Honor show. Next up is Tanahashi, who defeated Jay White. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on this match? This is for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship.
It was an interesting match, and again, I follow like New Japan on Instagram, and I follow other feeds. I was a little confused by the plot line, but I like Jay White. He has a good look to him. I'm getting the vibe that he's going to be the next Kenny Omega for them, or like down the road. Like, is that kind of an accurate thing, you think? Or
well, he doesn't have the pedigree as of Omega, and he's relatively green. I mean, he's 25 years old, from New Zealand. I don't think he's really spent much time in the States whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's been there a couple of times, in 2016, 2017, or what have you. But it's a big spot for him here. He's really, really up on the card, so they obviously are very high on him. So I'm just curious to see what they do with him moving forward.
No, I thought it was again a good. None of these guys gave to me, very disappointing performances. Maybe the hair was a match, but otherwise they all were really well done matches.
Yeah. Up next, we have Kenny Omega, who defeated Chris Jericho. And this is no disqualification match for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Mm-hmm. Matt, what are your thoughts on this match?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I think one of the little things that really sold the match effectively was the announcers and Jericho at one point pointing out that when Kenny grabbed the ropes and Jericho wouldn't release the hold and the ref was counting, he's like, why am I going to break? It's no DQ.
Yeah.
And the announcer said it too, I thought they did a good job telling the story. They did an effective job delivering on all the build-up. To me, it looked like a brutal two guys that don't like each other match. And that's important. You know, I think when you have, I know it was the pageantry of the entrances and everything else, but I really feel that they did a good job delivering the heat of the match. It's hard, I think, when it comes to certain matches to deliver, and they did.
Yeah.
You know, all the build-up. And they did a good job. I think Jericho, considering the fact he's been inactive for quite some time, did a really hell of a job going 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I thought the spots were good. The blood spot was a little interesting. I think either he didn't hit a vein or whatever, but you know, unusual to see a guy bleed, then kind of just clot up. But that's linked to the match too. He bled early and went a long while.
Yeah.
Also good because he didn't gig himself like crazy and spend the whole match bleeding.
He probably didn't take enough aspirin.
Maybe. I was always told that when you do it, after you cut, you hold your breath and push out. Like, hold your breath and push, and that helps force the blood out. And I one time at a match against a guy who cut himself really deep, like way deeper than he intended. So he'd keep using my pant leg to like wipe the blood off his head.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, it was filthy. Those tights are gone. But it was also like, it's dangerous, you blade yourself too deep, it's a face. I think it was a really good match. I think using the chair as a finish really helped sell the, like, wow, I like the fact too, especially that Jericho didn't kick out of the one-winged angel, but he grabbed the rope.
Yeah. So
it broke the count with that. I always appreciate the foot on the ropes approach because it keeps the hold valid. But in a no-DQ match, it should have been counted anyways, theoretically. What do you disqualify me for using the ropes? I got to grab the ropes and held them the whole time.
Well, I think it's the same thing. Like, you couldn't pin him on the floor. You know what I mean? So I think that's where that concept comes from.
Okay.
But I think they delivered on this match. It was a very easy match to fuck up because with all the hype, there's a very good possibility they're going to live up to it, but they did. So I give them kudos for that. I think Kenny Omega is top 5 in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I don't think there's any debate on that, and it's just the reality of the situation. Chris Jericho, awesome as always. Although I gotta take some umbrage with some people on the internet who are proclaiming Chris Jericho as the greatest of all time, and that's just not true. He's one of the all-time greats, but I have a hard time putting him over Hogan. I have a hard time putting him over Bruno. I have a hard time putting him over even like an Inoki or a El Santo as in terms of greatest of all time in the history of professional wrestling. That goes a long way, people. And Jericho's never been in a position where he had to carry a company on his back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously he didn't carry ECW. He didn't carry WCW. He didn't carry WWE. Some of these other guys had to carry entire companies on their back.
I agree. It's a very... I know what they're trying to get to. I know what they're trying to say. But yeah, he's one of the greats. For sure.
But everyone takes extreme positions on shit. That's kind of the culture of today. Either someone's the greatest of all time or they blow. And no one can be middle of the road. Now, I'm not saying that Chris Jericho is middle of the road. I'm saying he's an all-time great. Probably in the top 50, maybe in the top 100. I don't know where I haven't ranked anyone out. Mm-hmm. But for fuck's sake, I can't put him over fucking Hogan or Steve Austin. Hogan with longevity and Austin with numbers. Hogan to me is number one because of what he did over an extended period of time and 2 companies. So it's like,
yeah.
But Jericho is awesome. Did he do the cruise yet? Did he do his Jericho cruise yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's. I want to see what's up with the Jericho cruise because that looks like a boatload of fun. Now, I guess the big question is like, how long is Jericho going to stick around in Japan for? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to be a while?
I'd say maybe a month. I mean, he's got a post Wrestle Kingdom attack on Naito, and they're building that up. Now, is that something like, for instance, is this the thing where Jericho is going to return the favor or whatever and have part of this, September 1st show be Jericho Naito?
It could be.
Boom, imagine that. That's going to be right there alone. Another reason to go to the show, which I'm already saying right now, I'm going to do all in my power to get to that show.
All in announced for September 1st. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Although I can't see a scenario where Jericho loses again in Japan to Naito, but I also can't see a scenario where Naito loses. Coming off the result of the main event.
Yeah.
So in a certain way, they either book themselves in a corner or they put themselves in a position where it's a lot of intrigue to this match because I don't know where they're going to go. But I'm excited to see what they do moving forward here. And then lastly, in the main event, we had Okada, who defeated Naito. And this was for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. It went 36 minutes, 30 seconds. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on this match?
I enjoyed it. It was, again, a top-notch match. I really thought Naito was getting the belt here. But it makes sense in a sense if you go with the idea that, he's working with Jericho next to go over him and, elevate that way.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a relationship with the U.S. fans, I like the match. I mean, Okada's great. He's going to always put a good performance on. It's one of those things that, you watch these guys work and they're so smooth and so good that it just, it's amazing. And when you watch this kind of match and you go, okay, now I'm going to watch WWE, am I not as impressed because it's a different set of performance tools? Meaning you have different spots. You have, like, how many times are you going to see a guy run through the ropes and dive? Not that there weren't those in the show, but it's kind of...
I think the problem with WWE in terms of in-ring is that we see so much of it. Like 3 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Tuesday, a pay-per-view every 3 weeks. What you're looking at is you see the same formula over and over again because, if you watch that much wrestling of the same guys over and over again, you guys are going to see the same spots. It's like if you watch 50 Ric Flair matches, they're all going to look pretty similar.
Right.
You watch 50 Hulk Hogan matches, they're going to look similar. You watch 50 Bret Hart matches, they're going to look similar. So it's the fact that we don't see these guys as often makes their matches really feel spontaneous. And it feels like they're calling everything in the ring. It doesn't seem like they're going over spots at all in the back. If they are, they're doing a great job of hiding it. But I think it goes overall to the presentation of the show.
Yeah, I'll say this too. I think that the way the action's presented, mind you, the language barrier included, felt way more personal and meaningful to these guys. Like they wanted to win the matches. They do a lot of little things, whether it's talking to the ref, arguing with a fan. We didn't have fans, mind you, holding signs up. We didn't have fans chanting. We didn't have fans doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
That I feel helps hurt the product because, again, I've always felt the fans here want to be part of the show. They want to be the show. And it's like, I didn't pay money to see your stupid ass. Shut up.
All right.
I came to watch the match. And unfortunately, U.S. fans have this entitlement like, well, I get to cheer and do chants. And like, well, no, smart guy, we know you know the real name of the wrestlers. That's great. Shut up. Just enjoy the show.
Like if she's got herpes chants were cool in 1997. And to be honest, in 1997, they weren't that cool back then either.
I still say the whole sign thing peaked with the HIV for life NWO sign. So after that, sorry.
I desperately want to go to a show in Japan. I actually want to go to Japan. I want to go to a show in Japan. I want to go to a show in Mexico, like really bad. And I probably will within the next 5 years, I hope.
Yeah.
I get an opportunity to go. But I like New Japan because they have a sports-based presentation.
Yes.
Everything seems to be as serious as a pro wrestling show can be.
Yep.
Mind you, it's still pro wrestling. Especially with the American feed. They're not doing a lot of promoting or like, oh, get a Snickers bar or a lot of that nonsense. You don't have that fucking scroll on the bottom of the screen. You don't have a lot of other fucking ulterior shit going on. You're just watching wrestling. And I think even with the language barrier, even with not knowing most of the angles and the feuds and what have you, what wins the day is wrestling from bell to bell. If you put on a show that has good wrestling from start to finish, from bell to bell, you will take the day, no matter what your fucking angles are.
Yeah, I will say this. One of the little things that really stood out to me, if you want to call it little things, was the post-match interviews. Jericho and Omega.
Yeah.
And just Omega selling the moment. ice pack on like that. I noticed that a lot too. They had the ice packs in the back of the necks. It helps sell the physicality of the match. All these little things. And then his post-match comes. He put Jericho over, talking about he was better than I expected. And then when Jericho came out and he was just dropping F-bombs left and right, and he was like, "The fuck do you want? I want to get out of here. Get on with it." And he was so rude. And he's selling he's the bad guy, you know? And he was like, they asked, "Are you going to stay around?" Like, no comment. "No, I'm not. I'm done." And then, of course, he comes out and he attacks Naito. So that was a good show. And I know they had a lot of new eyes on them. I'd be curious to see what their buy rate change is for their subscriptions, because I know I'm going to get one. But how many fans they picked up because of that? That's one of the really only ways you can tell nowadays when it comes to real fans watching. I also would, again, suggest that if you can check out the Being the Elite on YouTube, the Wrestle Kingdom episode. It's like about 16 minutes long, and it's excellent. The build-up, the night of, the during the show, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the after, it just really well. And then if you watched the next night or night after, whatever it was, Cody Rhodes was in a rematch, I think, maybe, but he went after Ibushi, and Kenny came down to make the save and was like, "Don't do it." And that was a really heated, intense moment. Now, when you watch this Young Bucks video, they show them at, I don't know, a Japanese Cracker Barrel, whatever the hell it is, a restaurant. And eventually Cody and Kenny have words. They're still selling it, and that's helping to sell that storyline. Now, my guess is that this show, which the Young Bucks and Cody are putting on in the States, it's going to be on September 1st. There's all-in promos all over the Twitter feed now for various people being involved in it. I would not be surprised if it's Chicago or someplace easily accessible by flight. And I would not be surprised if the main event is Cody versus Kenny. So you're playing to your audiences. You're putting on a big show. Would you see Jericho versus Naito? Maybe. Yeah. Let's hope it's a good show. Young Bucks defending against somebody.
Let's see if we get an NWA World Title match on that card.
Why not?
Billy, can you make that happen somehow?
Yeah. Get him, even if it's a Jay White, something to kind of get something to talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only sponsor for this show, if I remember correctly, was Tekken 7, The Final Retribution.
Tekken 7.
A lot of people on the internet and that do podcasts, they always do like these what if scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? And having David Von Erich in the main event, it's like, what if David Von Erich didn't pass away? What would that mean for the wrestling business? So a lot of people will say, so-and-so should have been NWA champion. David Von Erich would have been NWA champion. Ted DiBiase would have been NWA champion. Jim Duggan would have been NWA champion. Butch Reed would have been NWA champion. No, they weren't. See, after Crockett got on TBS, there was no way in hell that Jim Crockett or Dusty Rhodes were going to let anyone who didn't work for Jim Crockett Promotions become NWA World Champion.
Mm-hmm.
See, prior to them getting on TBS in April of 85, March or April of 85, the only other world champion was Kerry Von Erich. Kerry Von Erich won it, at the Parade of Champions, the tribute show for David Von Erich, and they did that favor for the Von Erich family and for Fritz and for World Class and what have you. And if David didn't pass away, Kerry wouldn't have gotten that match, I don't think. I don't think they would have put the belt on David either. I don't think they would have put the belt on anybody. I think they would have had Flair do Flair things and what have you. And eventually, World Class was going to have to break away. They eventually did break away from the NWA. And the rest of the NWA got absorbed in the Jim Crockett Promotions or died out themselves or what have you. But as we talked about in the show on a prior episode, is that as the years gone on, Ric Flair defended his championship outside of Crockett less and less until not at all. And so this feeling that he would have dropped it to someone in the UWF, which wasn't part of the NWA or World Class or anywhere else, I think that wouldn't have happened. Like, he dropped it to Ron Garvin.
Yeah.
That was it. Dropped to Dusty Rhodes. Those are guys who worked for Crockett.
Right.
So I don't think that would have changed. Where it would have changed history, in my opinion, is that maybe World Class would have been stronger. There would have been a viable brand, and they probably wouldn't have out of business. They wouldn't have merged with the USWA. They wouldn't have got involved in that AWA nonsense, and maybe they would have been able to be strong on their own, because not only was David being groomed to be a future world champion, he was also being groomed to become the next guy in terms of a wrestling mind, in terms of a booker. All the boys loved him. He was the guy that had the best sense for professional wrestling. And when he passed away, I don't think Fritz had anyone to pass the business down to. And that was his hope. Kerry could have handled it, he would have. If Kevin would have been able to handle it, he would have. But they didn't. And you kind of see it, after they had a couple of good years still left in them, but after a while, some of those World Class shows are god awful. So what are your thoughts on the what if scenario?
I often feel like people don't consider all the political ramifications. I got a book over the holidays, What If History book.
Yeah.
And what they do is really nice. At the bottom, they put the two timelines, one of the current timeline, what actually happened, and one what could have happened.
Yeah.
And the thing they take into account, variables outside that would affect things. So if Kennedy wasn't shot, we never would have went to Vietnam because he was against it, so like 100, like really against it, and wanted to try to keep us out of there. So maybe we went to their later date, whatever, things like that. So wrestling-wise, when I think about that, I think about the promoters, like you were saying, like they wouldn't have wanted to put somebody else's top guy over and hurt their product, and we saw that with Flair. What we can go off of is the proof of what they didn't do with what did happen.
Right.
So what makes you think, okay, well, Dave Von Erich, if he didn't die, would he have grown into become the performer? Go back. Would he have been one of the ones that made the leap to McMahon country eventually? Because eventually Kerry went over as Texas Tornado.
Yeah.
But would he have been like, the Outlaw, David Von Erich, or whatever it would have been,
Vince was high on those guys. He was featuring them in matches. The Von Erichs were in his magazine, although he didn't work for them. And then when David passed away, he gave him a 10-bell salute. So he was really hot to trot for the Von Erichs. They didn't get him, though.
And again, it's fun to play what ifs. It really is. But I think if you consider some of the political stuff going on behind this, you consider that and go, okay, well, we wouldn't have seen, this happen because of this much politics. Maybe we would have seen him live, and maybe the ratings would have stayed up, because when he passed away and Mike committed suicide, it just kind of kept building,
Yeah.
One death suicide tragedy, two death suicides, what's going on?
They had Gino Hernandez in the mix in that too, who passed away early.
Right.
So it's like, ooh, and then they had the Fritz heart attack angle.
Yes.
Like, oh boy. And their business went off the rails. And it's just like, they didn't expand. I don't think Fritz knew how to expand. They weren't on cable television, although they probably should have been, especially coming from Dallas. It's weird. Yeah. They had a huge syndication network. They were huge in Israel, and they would do tours out there. I can see a World Class absorbing, going into Arizona, going into New Mexico, Las Vegas, Southern California. Well, they never expanded past that. They never expanded past. They did some shots in Oklahoma, but they never really got any bigger. Like, they weren't going into Houston unless during the time they were partners with Paul Bosch. But once the WWF came in there, they weren't going to Houston. No. They would try to run like Amarillo and some of these southern Texas towns, and they didn't do well out there. They didn't run San Antonio even after Joe Blanchard folded it up. They didn't run there very often. So I don't think they had a quite of understanding of how to expand, and the ill-fated partnerships with Paul Bosch, ill-fated partnerships with Bill Watts and Jerry Jarrett, and shit just went sideways for them. Bad. Yeah. You can't even blame Vince on that one. Like, most of the time you can blame Vince on that one, but like you can't even, like, they imploded on their own.
Yes, totally.
Like, they didn't lose a lot of talent because the Iceman King Parsons wasn't coming into WWF. Von Erichs never went. It's like they can't even blame Vince for stealing talent. Like, who did he steal? What, Rick Rude?
The missing link.
A missing link? For fuck's sake. And their rosters were always small anyway. Like, a world-class roster was like 15 to 20 guys. That's a max.
Yeah.
Like, they were very small. It wasn't like Chris Adams were going to the WWF. It was like, none of these guys did, really. No. You know, they lost Gang, which was probably the big one, right? One-man gang?
Yep.
But it's the fucking one-man gang, for Christ's sake. You could replace the one-man gang. You know, like, the Freebirds would come in and out. Brody was always there, and Brody didn't go to New York either. So you can't even blame Vince on their demise.
Yeah.
They imploded. Same thing with Florida. You can't really blame Vince for Florida either, I don't think. That's more Crockett's fuck up.
Yeah.
After Crockett bought or absorbed after Eddie Graham died.
Yeah.
But, you know, Jim Crockett the buck has to stop somewhere, I guess. I guess you can give him the blame for not only the downfall of Jim Crockett Promotions, but the downfall for the NWA in general, because he was the president of the NWA as they fell apart. You know, as they lost to St. Louis and to Kansas City. I guess at some point they stopped doing business with Portland. Although Portland, I don't think they were getting NWA title matches very often. So it's like, ooh. And then you had Paul Bosch who went with WWF, and you had Bill Watts in the mix doing crazy shit. They don't have Memphis because Memphis is with the AWA, and I guess at some point they lose their sponsorship or their partnership with All Japan. They tried to go with New Japan for a little bit, but that doesn't last very long. And then, you know, by the time Crockett sold it in late '88, you know, that's the end of the NWA.
Yep.
And I haven't gotten any information on what happened between when Crockett sold it and say the next time we hear of the NWA is basically when Shane Douglas throws down the belt. Like, I want to know that time period, like 89 to 93 NWA. That's what I'm curious about. Like, what happened? And I know they had this shit with, Flair, because it was weird. Because I mentioned it on this show that I thought that WCW needed to rebrand right away. Like, the moment Turner took it over, they should have dropped the NWA name and everything. And it's had to be WCW championships. Because that shit got confusing. And me starting watching, WCW in 1988, I got confused with what's WCW, what's the NWA, and yet there's name confusion, which kind of reminds me of like what TNA's going through. It's just name confusion. Like, they're both the WCW and the NWA champion at the same time, and Flair was stripped of the WCW championship, but he was still the NWA champion. And then he got signed by WWE, so the NWA stripped him of the belt. And he's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of crazy shenanigans. So, I do like these what-if scenarios, but I don't think they go deep enough into understanding, the overall landscape of what's going on in professional wrestling. Because it's easy to say, cause and effect. This happens and this happens. Like, no. It's like this happens and then all this other shit would have to happen for this to even be a viable option, or they would have done it. And it's so much bigger than, if something stupid. Like, if Shawn Michaels would have came to the WCW, that the WCW would have won the wrestling war. Well, now probably not. They probably still would have lost.
Yeah.
Because understand this. If you would have told me in September of '97 that the WWF was not going to have Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels in 1998, I was like, there's no way that WCW would lose. And Shawn Michaels didn't last very long into 1998. WrestleMania, and he's done.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have made a difference.
That's when he lost his smile, right?
No, that's when he hurt his back. He hurt his back at the Royal Rumble. He got backdrop on a casket. And then he had the match with Austin, and he's gone until 2002. Like, he's gone. Peace. He lost a smile, I think, in '96.
Okay.
That's when he got beat up by the Marine. I think in reality, if memory serves me correctly, he just didn't want to do the job to Brett at WrestleMania.
Probably.
Which is a typical Shawn Michaels maneuver. It's funny that they didn't give him a pass back then, but some of these guys get passes now. Or like they say, Triple H is burying talent, John Cena is burying talent, and Roman Reigns is burying talent. These guys are doing anything they have to keep their spot. No different to what Steve Austin's done in the past. No different than what Hulk Hogan's done in the past. No different than what Ric Flair's done in the past, and especially Shawn Michaels.
Right.
So Shawn Michaels used to take summers off because he didn't want to work the summer. Go back and look at what his injuries happened. You'll see it. Man, so don't get so hung up on what if scenarios. They're good to talk about, but if you're gonna talk about what if scenarios, just have a full understanding of what the time is. This entire show is based on a what if scenario. What if the NWA went national and then global in 1983, a year before Vince McMahon did? And we did. We're at our 66th show at this point going over this. So it's a lot more than saying, oh yeah, we would have done this and I would have booked it this way. This guy would have been my champion. There's a lot of underpinning stuff that would have to happen. It's like, imagine me going into an office and talk to Bill Watts. I'm like, hey Bill, we're going to do profit sharing. He would have called me a communist and thrown me out of his office. You know what I mean? Imagine me trying to go to Jerry Jarrett and trying to sell him on this. Or, go to Crockett and sell him on this. And, you would have to sell these guys. That's the first domino that has to fall to get these guys to agree. And it's literally the biggest hurdle. Because once you get these guys on the same page, and then we can talk to all the other stuff. It would be television clearances and where's what TV and who's on syndication and who's on cable. Then we got to talk about merchandising and the infancy of the T-shirts and all the other stuff and licensing agreements and how can we get our guys on commercials? How can we guys get our guys into movies and on talk shows and into Hollywood? It's talking to Bill Apter and try either to buy out the PWI or get him to cover us exclusively. It would take us convincing guys who don't know anything about what the future holds that, hey guys, it's probably a good idea to hold on to all your videotapes and tape all your house shows because we can sell them down the road. A lot of people forget, it's like, yeah, the WWE has all this footage because they tape just about everything. Right. Picture this before. They used to have commercial releases of the best of the WWF, which would be, for the most part, unseen matches from the house shows. And they had 25 volumes of the best of the WWF. They would have little skits and all kinds of shit in it, but they would be matches that you wouldn't see anywhere else. There'd be 3 Hogan matches on there. You would never see 3 Hogan matches all year if you were lucky.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they were doing commercial releases and video games, and they had T-shirts and foam fingers and cups, and it's trying to get these guys on board with full press merchandising across the board. And then we'll talk about the closed circuit evolution into pay-per-view. And how are you going to run all these towns as a national? How many wrestlers were you going to have to get? And how are we going to tour these guys? And how's travel's going to work? And what's the infrastructure going to be? And we might have to go to guarantee contracts earlier, to compete with Vince. It's like, oh, we got to lock these motherfuckers up because the way that Vince did end up winning was the ability for him to take talent. So, man, you got to lock these guys up for real. You got to lock up your TV people. If you have local TV, you need to lock that down because Vince is going to try to come in and buy it and take it from you. So if you're not on a paper deal, if you're not have a guaranteed contracts with the television companies, well, you need one real fucking fast.
Yeah.
And then there's terms of profit sharing where you would have to, you might have to float money to territories who are not performing well to make sure they don't go out of fucking business. It's like, oh, the oil crisis happens in Mid-South. We have to float you there. We have to float Bill Watts money to survive or have him move in another direction, another part of the country. So you might move Mid-South Wrestling, UWF, somewhere else. It's like, you might want to have to start, going into Montana or Colorado or someplace that doesn't have, something that's a virgin territory or what have you, to make sure your business is viable. And then maybe when the economy is better in those oil states, then you come back. But it's like, the NWA didn't do any of those things because the NWA wasn't a company. It was, I don't even know what the fuck you call it. Like, it's a board of directors type thing. They had no legitimate power. Like, they had the power to blackball wrestlers, but how many wrestlers did they truly blackball? Like, none. Like, in reality, maybe for not an extended period of time, maybe for a few months or a year, but they didn't put anyone out of business. If you have talent and you can draw money, you're always going to be viable regardless.
Yeah.
And they could never compete against any kind of major promotions anyway. It wasn't like they battled the NWA, the AWA in the 60s. Like, they just let them have it. They didn't battle in 1964. They didn't battle up in New York against the WWF. Nope, they just let them have it. So it was never built to take on a major promotion with money behind it. They were, in fact, built to take out a outlaw promotion. Like, a bunch of local guys coming together and making indies. Like, no, we're squashing that shit. Fuck it.
Right.
But that's it. I don't think, in a nutshell, that the NWA did its job properly, or that the president had enough power to conduct his business to make sure that all the territories were good. Because all the presidents were promoters. So I'm the president. I want to try to give myself the best deal. I want to try to have the champion more in my territory. Okay, but it doesn't really help the rest of the territories. So I think that's probably a mistake too. It wasn't like, how like the NFL, right? They have Goodell as, people hate his guts, and probably deservedly so. But they have Goodell as the commissioner, and he can make rulings and all that shit, and he has a lot of power.
Yes.
But they wouldn't put Jerry Jones in that position.
No.
Because it's a conflict of interest. And the fact they would have Fritz as NWA president, they would have Crockett, they would have Eddie Graham, they would have Sam Mushnick, and what have you as NWA president, that's 100% conflict of interest. But the NWA didn't have any real power anyway. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on the NWA and their seemingly lack of power?
Well, I think it was the too many chefs approach, and eventually just came back and cost them. I mean, they had so many different opinions of my guy's the top guy. Like, they didn't look at it naturally, subjectively, what's best for business. Like, if they were going to actually rally and go against the McMahon approach, they could have done something. I mean, but everyone wanted their own piece of pie, and it's unfortunately a common thing in life. Is you have people looking only out for themselves, and that ends up biting everyone in the back because no one ends up winning. So then in the end, you have this shithole approach where no one gets away with anything good. And I do think that, they could have done a couple of things here and there to build up. I mean, I grew up watching NWA, AWA, WWF, some random stuff I got off my cable company. And I've read a lot of, dirt sheets. So I was one of those guys. And just voraciously absorbing all this information from these, Continental Wrestling, Yeah. It was great, but you had too many people not thinking big picture, which a lot of promoters don't do. They don't think about, well, if I burn out this territory, what am I going to do? I'll just keep going. Well, your number's going to go down. Well, I'll keep going. Ugh, and they don't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened with Pro Wrestling USA. That shit fell apart.
Right.
Like, quickly fell apart. They were just no match for McMahon. And I think the way you beat McMahon is you got to use the McMahon playbook. And as we get into the year 1984, we're going to discuss what that looks like in great detail. And like, how do you compete with McMahon? How do you fight a monster? You become a monster yourself.
Right.
And that's what needed to happen. Not everyone thinks it's booking and creative, and it's a part of it, of course, but it's everything else. So you have the best creative in the world, but if you don't have, you don't have the best TV times, you don't have the marketing, you don't have the merchandise to go along with that. You're not booking buildings on the right day.
And realistically, when you look at the idea, what is the one thing? It's not so much of a promotion as much as who would be the comparable superstar to a Hogan or Flair. Third party. Like, who would be the third group? It's not Greg Gagne.
Fuck, no, it's not.
Kerry Von Erich had the look, and, he was decent in the ring, but for what he could do,
Like, if it was 5 years later, like, if it was 1990... because the wrestling business changed, then yeah. 1985, 1986, to compete with Hogan, no.
Yeah.
Like, that list is so small, and you would have to build them from the ground up. I mean, I have someone that I'm going to put in that spot, and we'll talk about it when it gets to that. That I think that I can compete with Hogan, but it's only for a short-term time. Like, I think I can get 2 years before I have to move on to the next big superstar.
Right.
Like, I don't think I can do the 8-year run like Hogan had. Because if someone else could have done it, someone else would have done it. But that person really did exist, so you kind of have to cobble together you got to build a superstar and then build a superstar right behind him, and then build another superstar. You're building guys up, you guys to ascend, and then to pass the torch, and then descend, and then you keep on doing that for as long as you can. But I don't think we can go straight through, 1984 to 1991, 1992, where Hogan's on top. I don't think we can get that. That guy, I don't think it really exists. But you can take a bunch of guys and do more switches with the title. And remember, Hogan had that belt forever. Obviously he lost it in '88 and he lost it in '90. But other than those year periods, 88 to 89 and 90 to 91, Hogan had the title for the entire time. So it's like, it's all about, from a creative point of view. Yeah. You want to keep it. You want to do it less. You want to be different, but you want to be similar. Like, yes, you're gonna make it more adult oriented. Yes, you're gonna make it less cartoony. Yes, you're gonna have great matches bell to bell, and you're gonna get rid of a lot of the Gaga. But some of the showbiz aspects of it, you have to keep. You're gonna have to keep a lot of the celebrity involvement. You might have to keep a lot of the marketing and the ice cream bars and all that shit, because you need those revenue streams.
Right.
So a lot of those things you have to keep in place. Like, you can't did it the way that Crockett did it, because obviously it didn't work. Because if it worked, they'd still be in business. Like, Crockett was really good in '85. '86 was probably their best year, and then halfway through '87, that's a 2.5 year period. Like, they had a good '82, and they had a good '83, and then '84 they declined. They came back in '85 once they got back on TBS. '86 was the fantastic year, then half of '87, and then everything started coming off the rails for the '80s. And obviously they did well in the '70s and prior to that and what have you. But it was like, fuck. We're looking at 1983. And the reason I chose 1983 is it's the last year of the territories. It doesn't all end at once, but over the next couple of years, they all go away.
Yes.
But we know this. So we have the advantage of forethought, I guess you would call it. And we'll see. We're doing a big show. We're doing a big show from Shea Stadium, which is insane. But if you watch the progression from episode 1 to episode now, you understand what we're trying to do. And there is a thought that we can try to keep Vince from expanding by having him play defense. So it's taking shots into the Northeast to make sure that he has to solidify the Northeast so he won't expand everywhere else. It's been tried before. But, like, the AWA tried to do that, but I don't think they had TV in New York. But if you had cable, and we have both ESPN and TBS, so our TV's in the Northeast, we could definitely take a shot into that. Again, it may make money, it may not. Those shots in the Northeast is not going to dictate our health of our business. What we're trying to do is to put pressure on him so he plays defense. While he's playing defense, we solidify our areas by making sure that we lock down our television, that we lock down our promotions, make sure we lock down our areas. So if he tries to get in there, he's not going to be able to get in. You'll try to lock him out, and then keep him fighting in the Northeast. I specifically opened up a promotion in Los Angeles that I'm, fictitiously the head of, so he can't run into Los Angeles. You know what I mean? So it's like we got to try to keep him on the defensive. So it's curious to me to see where we go. We're still looking for a Hogan killer. It's not going to be the original Sheik, as someone suggested. He's 100 years old, and no, it's not going to work for us. So, all right, so guys, we are officially out of time. So for Matt Riley, I'm Juan Cena.